When Secretary Kerry says these are not the choices we will make, which is kind of vague, is he saying that the U.S. would veto any resolution in the UN which might dictate a peace solution or might recognize a Palestinian state?
Yes.
He would veto that. The U.S.
Yes.
will veto that.
Yeah, and we've made that clear over and over, Jake.
On the one hand, you have Israelis building housing settlements, and yet, on the other hand, you have Palestinian leaders that have been credibly accused of inciting violence that has resulted in innocent Israelis being killed. As you know, Hamas, a group that the United States government categorizes as a terrorist organization, governs Gaza. There's fear that if the West Bank had elections tomorrow, Hamas would win those elections. And I guess the question for a lot of voters might be, why are you focusing on the Israelis?
Jake, we have given Israel $38 billion in defense assistance over the next 10 years. We defended Israel when we were the only country really in the world to be doing it when they went to war in Gaza twice to stop that rocket fire coming from Hamas. Time and again, we have supported their right to defend themselves. The resolution that we abstained from called out incitement and condemned incitement and violence. That's one of the reasons why we abstained, because it had that balance. Secretary Kerry today condemned incitement, condemned violence. This is not a question of whether or not we have called out Palestinian incitement and terrorism. We have consistently, and we've helped Israel defend itself. We have saved Israeli lives with our defense for the Iron Dome missile defense system that has shot down rockets coming from Gaza. The problem with the settlements that people need to understand is that this is building deep inside of the West Bank. And what you hear in the United States often is rhetoric about support for a two-state solution. The reason that this is worth focusing on, these are not just housing settlements. These are construction that is taking place on Palestinian land, on what anybody who has looked at this issue understands to be a future Palestinian state. Jake, there's a term of art about building inside the blocks. That means building outside of the 1967 lines, but within what people generally expect to be the borders of an Israel and a two-state solution. That's not even what's happening here. This is building deep inside of the West Bank, and I think that part of what we're trying to do is bring more attention on that. To have people like you reporting on that, Jake, because this is changing the facts on the ground and making a two-state solution nothing more than a talking point.
But I hear what you're saying, but that you still didn't respectfully answer the question, which is voters out there, American citizens out there might think, on the one hand, you have people building homes, and okay, you're calling them illegal and they're detrimental to the peace process, but it's construction, and ultimately people can leave houses. And on the other hand, you have people killing people, and that's just final. And that there seems to be a moral equivalence argument being made that might rub a lot of people the wrong way and confuse them.
There is no moral equivalence. There is no justification for terrorism. No settlement construction should ever justify either terrorism or incitement to terrorism. On that, there's just no question. And Secretary Kerry made that clear again today. We're drawing no equivalence. The fact of the matter is, though, Jake, just describing them as people building houses, they are displacing Palestinians from their homes. They're taking land that everybody who's looked at this issue thinks would be a part of a future Palestinian state. They're making the possibility of a contiguous Palestinian state with the territory that connects to itself impossible. So again, the question is, if it is U.S. policy, which it has been under multiple administrations of both parties, to support a two-state solution, why should we be silent in the face of policies that clearly are going to make that impossible? And as I mentioned, Jake, this government has been very clear about its intentions. Prime Minister Netanyahu himself saying this is the most pro-settlement government in Israeli history. Israeli Knesset advancing a law that would legalize even these distant outposts that are deep inside of the West Bank. Again, if it is America's interest, as it has been under President Bush and President Obama, to pursue a two-state solution, why should we be silent when there are policies being pursued that make a two-state solution impossible?